Welcome to Thunga's story time, where ancient whispers come alive. Tonight, we journey back thousands of years to the heart of ancient Sumer, a world where counting sheep wasn't just a bedtime trick, but a sacred ritual under starlit skies. From bustling mud brick villages to royal palaces, discover how these early dreamers battled sleepless nights with songs, prayers, and timeless traditions. Ready to uncover the secrets of how the world's first sleepers found peace? Stay with us, and let the gentle history whispers guide you into a night of wonder. Close your eyes for a moment and let yourself drift backward, not just decades or centuries, but millennia. Before electricity, before paper, before even the pyramids of Egypt had fully risen from the sand, there was a quiet world cradled between two great rivers. This is Sumer. Ancient Sumer. A land where time moved with the flow of the Tigris and Euphrates, where the sky was an open scroll of stars, and the night was something sacred, something you listened to, not escaped from. As twilight settles across the wide Mesopotamian plain, the soft gold of day fades into violet and blue. There are no streetlights here, no hum of traffic, no buzzing neon signs. Instead, the world grows quiet with intention. The sun has done its work, and now it is the moon's turn to keep watch. You stand on the edge of a mud brick rooftop, the earth still warm beneath your feet. Below you, the village winds down. Children are being called inside, goats are gently herded back into pens, and oil lamps flicker to life like fallen stars return to the ground. The air is dry, but not cold. It carries the smell of baked earth, grain, and a hint of smoke from evening fires. This is when Sumer breathes. Not with the loud breath of labor and sunlight, but with a sigh, long, slow, and knowing. Inside a small home nearby, a woman prepares for sleep. She dusts crushed herbs into a shallow clay bowl and places it near her mat, bitterroot, perhaps, or sweet rush, thought to ease the mind. Beside her, her child clutches a carved figure of a sheep, rounded, soft, its features worn smooth from many nights of small hands holding it tight. She doesn't read a bedtime story. She sings. A slow chant, rhythmic and almost hypnotic, with words older than writing. She sings of stars watching gently, of sheep crossing the fields under the care of kind gods. The boy's eyelids grow heavy, and soon, his breathing deepens into the steady rhythm of sleep. But the story of counting sheep begins even farther from the hearth. Out in the fields, under that open sky, shepherds settle in for their own kind of rest. One lies back on a stone, his robe pulled up to block the evening breeze. He listens, not to silence, but to the low sounds of night, the occasional bleat, the rustle of grass, the hush of river water nearby. He begins to count, not because he fears losing a sheep, but because the numbers bring calm. Each count is like a breath. 1, 2, 3. A rhythm that mimics the body slowing down. He imagines the sheep passing in a slow line, one by one, soft and obedient. Not just animals, but symbols, white threads woven through the dark fabric of the night. Sumerians didn't know about melatonin, or the REM cycle. But they knew this: the mind needs patterns to let go. And counting, especially of something so peaceful as sheep, was one of the earliest known rituals to draw the soul into dreams. You can imagine clay tablets etched by candlelight, simple figures, marks beside marks, detailing not taxes or conquests, but sleep itself. Remedies for restlessness, prayers to the goddess of dreams, myths where sheep act as messengers between the waking world and the place of shadows. Even their gods understood the weight of rest. The goddess Nanj, protector of the oppressed, was believed to send dreams to those who were troubled, offering insight, or comfort. In Sumer, sleep was not seen as idle time. It was sacred. It was communication. Now, as you take another breath in this ancient air, the first true stars appear overhead. No satellites, no planes, just the clean, unbroken constellations your ancestors knew by name. Perhaps you hear the whisper of wind brushing over barley fields, or the low voice of an elder telling one last story before sleep. And maybe, just maybe, you see the gentle figures of sheep walking in a line through the twilight. Not hurried. Not frightened. Just calm, and quiet, and exactly where they're supposed to be. So let the ancient hush of Sumer wrap around you like a warm, earthen blanket. Let the rhythm of sheep counting carry you, as it did for shepherds thousands of years ago, into that deep and endless night. Because long before apps, pillows, and white noise machines, humans were already finding ways to dream. Under these very stars. With nothing but silence, ritual, and sheep. Sleep well. Evening walk through a mud brick village. The stars are settling in above the Sumerian sky, and the hush of twilight deepens into the gentle quiet of early night. After sitting for a while with the shepherd and his steady rhythm of counting, you descend from the hill and follow a narrow footpath toward the village. The earth beneath your sandals is dry and warm, giving off the day's last breath of heat. The moon rises behind you, painting the edges of the mud brick homes with a soft, silver light. The village is peaceful, Made not for noise, but for rhythm. Built from clay, straw, and sun, the walls around you are not tall, but close, cradling you in winding alleys and shaded doorways. You pass houses shaped like cubes, their corners rounded by time and wind. Their roofs are flat, where families often gather in the cooler hours. The doors are wooden, many draped with woven cloth or reeds, fluttering slightly in the warm breeze. The air smells faintly of baked grain, dry dust, and the faint musk of livestock. There's a trace of something sweet too, perhaps dates or fig sap, maybe crushed herbs smoldering in a corner incense dish. As you walk, you begin to notice how the village slows itself, gently and without rush, like a long exhale at the end of a busy day. To your left, a woman sits on a threshold, slowly weaving a small reed mat. Her fingers move without urgency, more ritual than task. Beside her, a child plays with a small clay figurine of a lion, his legs curled up under him, eyelids heavy, but not yet ready to surrender to sleep. Further down, an old man leans against the doorway of his home, telling a story to two grandchildren huddled at his feet. His voice is low and steady, like the wind brushing through tall grass. You can't make out every word, but you catch the rhythm, a tale about a boy who followed a sheep into the stars, and found a land where people never aged, because they never hurried. Across the way, someone lights an oil lamp. The flame wobbles for a moment, then steadies, casting golden shadows against the walls. One by one, the village begins to glow with flickers of amber light, like fireflies caught in clay jars. You pass a small window. Inside, a family sits cross-legged on woven mats. A father hums an old lullaby as a child rests her head on his lap. A mother mixes crushed herbs in a small bowl, likely something to brew into sleep tonic tea. You smell fenugreek, chamomile, and a hint of wild honey. No one rushes. There are no clocks ticking, no alarms waiting to ring. Here, the night is not an interruption, it is a companion. You reach a square near the village's heart, a small communal space framed by stone benches and low burning torches. A few elders sit quietly, sharing stories of the day in soft voices. A dog yawns beneath one bench, already drifting off. A boy throws a small sack of pebbles in the dirt, practicing a game that requires more patience than energy. Above it all, the stars shine clear and bright. There are no city lights here to drown them out. The constellations are like old friends, familiar, comforting. A few people tilt their heads skyward. One whispers a prayer. Another simply watches, listening to the sky's silence as if it, too, could speak. It's in these quiet moments that the rituals of rest begin to take shape. In one home, a woman pours warm water over her feet and dries them with a cloth passed down through 3 generations. She whispers the name of a sleep goddess as she does so, not as a command, but as an invitation. In another, a young man unrolls a sleeping mat beside a window. He places a small carved ram on a nearby shelf, strokes its smooth head once, and then folds his hands over his chest as he lies back, eyes open to the stars beyond. Everything in this village prepares the body for stillness and the mind for dreams. Stories are softened. Voices are hushed. Fire dims to embers. Time seems to slow, not as if it's ending, but as if it's unfolding inwards. Even the animals settle in. A goat curls against the wall of a courtyard, its breath slow and even. Chickens rustle softly in their coop, feathers fluffed. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey brays once, then goes quiet. You turn a final corner and find yourself back near where you started. From here, you can see the lights of the homes twinkling like quiet stars set low to the earth. The village is nearly asleep. Even the air feels heavier now, like a thick, warm blanket pulled gently over the land. And in that moment, you realize, this village, this night, this slow unfolding, isn't just about rest. It's about harmony. The kind that comes when people, land, light, and time are allowed to breathe together. So you pause, breathe deeply, and close your eyes for just a moment. The night will carry you from here. The herders who counted sheep. The village fades quietly behind you, its oil lamps now soft specks of amber in the distance. You walk once more along a dusty footpath, guided by the moonlight overhead and the distant, rhythmic bleating of sheep. The air is cooler out here, cleaner, too. It smells of dry grass, wool, and night. Beyond the last line of mud brick homes, the land stretches out into low hills and wide fields. This is where the herders live, not in houses, but in small woven tents or open shelters, moving with the flocks that feed the villages, barter in the markets, and offer wool to the temples. You climb gently uphill, your footsteps muffled by soft soil and scattered reeds. A few torches burn low along the path, and the moon casts long shadows behind every stone and sheep. Then you hear it, quiet laughter, the murmur of an old song, and the low crackle of a fire. You follow this sound and soon find yourself at a small shepherd's camp nestled among the hills. 3 men sit around the fire, their faces lined by sun and wind, their robes dusty but warm. A pot hangs above the flames, bubbling with something herbal and fragrant, perhaps lentils or wild onions. They greet you without surprise. Out here, strangers aren't rare. The land teaches hospitality. One of them gestures for you to sit, and a thick woven blanket is passed your way. As you settle near the fire, the flames flicker against their faces, and their silhouettes rise and fall with the bleating of the sheep beyond. One of the herders, the oldest of the three, begins to speak. His voice is low and smooth, like a song sung only at night. "We count them," he says, nodding to the herd grazing just beyond the firelight. "Not because we have to. We know them by heart. But counting helps the mind slip away." You glance into the darkness, where dozens of sheep graze or doze. Some stand still, their bodies soft and round under the stars. Others shift slightly, brushing against one another with gentle sighs. The herder continues, eyes half closed as he stirs the pot. I start at one. I picture them walking in a line, just slow enough for me to follow. No rush. No reason to hurry. 1 sheep. 2. 3. He draws in a deep breath. By the time I reach 30, I'm already drifting. Sometimes I make it to 40. Never more. Another herder chuckles quietly. He's never made it past 50 in his life. But I have. I counted to 73 once. Then I dreamed of a lamb made of clouds. They all laugh softly. You smile, warmed by both the fire and the moment. It's easy to see why they do this. Out here, beneath the wide sky, with nothing but stars and sheep, time doesn't push, it stretches. There are no doors to close, no alarms to set. The night itself is the ritual. You look up. The stars are radiant, fierce in their stillness. The moon sits just above the hilltop, casting a pearly light over the grazing flock. Their wool glows faintly, like quiet lanterns moving in the dark. The third herder, the youngest, leans back and lies on the ground, arms behind his head. He speaks softly, not to anyone in particular. My grandfather said sheep are messengers. He said when we sleep, they carry our thoughts to the gods. One by one. If you send too many at once, they get lost. There's silence after that. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but full, like the earth is listening. You sit back, too, letting your gaze rest on the slow movement of the sheep. They don't seem to mind the watchful humans. Their bleats are rare, spaced out like breaths. Some stand quietly, their eyes half-lidded, while others lie down in clumps of 3 or 4. And in your own mind, you begin to count. 1. A soft gray ewe with a black spot near her ear. 2. A small lamb nestled close to its mother. 3. A sleepy ram with curled horns and heavy eyelids. You don't need to name them. You only need to let them pass by, each one a small step deeper into calm. The oldest herder begins humming, a tune without words, low and steady. It matches the rhythm of your thoughts, the pace of the sheep, the breath of the land itself. He speaks again, voice soft and slow. We don't just tend sheep, he says. We tend sleep. For ourselves. For the flocks. For the world, maybe. He pauses, gazing into the fire. Someone must stay awake, so others can rest. His words settle over you like a wool blanket. Heavy, but comforting. The fire crackles, the stars blink slowly overhead, and somewhere out in the field, a sheep sneezes gently. The warmth of the fire, the rhythm of the herd, the scent of herbs and earth, it all weaves together, threading through your senses like a lullaby. In this world, ancient and simple, counting sheep is not just a means to sleep. It's a sacred rhythm. A mental prayer. A nightly practice that stretches across centuries and into the present. And as your mind begins to float, weightless, unburdened, you wonder how many people, in how many places and times, have counted just like this, sending sheep across the bridge between waking and dreams. The answer doesn't matter. All that matters is this moment. And that the next sheep is already on its way. Clues in Clay Tablets. Section 4 to 1000 to 1200 words. You leave the hillside behind, the soft bleats of sheep fading like a dream slipping from memory. The stars remain above you, unchanging, patient, but the world beneath them shifts again. You follow the path toward a low building nestled near the edge of the village. Unlike the mud brick homes or herders' tents, this place stands apart. Not larger or grander, but quieter, almost reverent. A scribe's dwelling, you sense. Or perhaps a healer's. A clay lantern flickers on a ledge outside the door, casting light in small pulses. You enter, gently brushing aside a hanging reed curtain. Inside, the air smells of baked earth, dried herbs, and old parchment. Not papyrus or paper, but the scent of something older, clay. Fired in ancient kilns and scratched with sharp reeds, the tablets inside this room are heavier than books, but just as full of stories. You kneel beside a low table scattered with small, rectangular tablets. They rest on woven mats, arranged carefully by someone who cares for knowledge the way others tend to flames or gardens. Some are broken at the corners, their cuneiform inscriptions weathered with age. Others are crisp, Their markings precise, neat rows of wedge-shaped symbols pressed into clay that once held heat from the sun. A quiet figure sits cross-legged across from you, an older woman with streaks of white in her hair and an oil lamp at her side. She nods in greeting but doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her hands gesture toward the tablets, inviting you to read. You pick up the first. It is warm, as if it has stored the heat of centuries. The marks are steady and slow. You cannot read Sumerian, but beside each tablet is a small tag, newer, perhaps recent, bearing translations etched onto thin slips of hardened siltstone. You read aloud softly, "For sleep that will not come, boil goat's milk with crushed fig leaves. Drink while the moon is rising, and do not speak for 3 breaths after." You pause. The rhythm of the instruction is almost poetic. Not a command, but an offering. The next tablet bears different advice. Place read mat beneath the head, not the shoulders. Face east if the dreams are troubled. Face west if you seek visions. You run your fingers over the carved lines, feeling their shallow grooves. Even without understanding the full language, you sense the care in their creation. These are not clinical prescriptions. They are rituals, personal, intuitive, sacred. Another tablet catches your eye. The tag beside it reads, "To quiet the soul, speak aloud the name of a bird, then the name of a flower, then the name of someone long gone. Repeat until still." You smile. Strange, and yet familiar. How many times in your life have you whispered names in the dark to feel less alone? The old woman across from you reaches for a small bundle beside her, wrapped in woven reed, and unties it carefully. Inside are several more tablets, these smaller and more worn. She passes one to you. You read, "Chant in breath time. Inhale for 4, hum for 8. Let the chest rise and fall like water." You try it, gently, almost playfully. Inhale. Hum. And with it comes a subtle release, like your ribs have loosened their grip. You begin to see a pattern. These were not just records of herbs or diets or physical cures. These were meditations. Memory aids. Dream keys. Insomnia, it turns out, is not modern. These people, thousands of years ago, also lay awake under stars, unsure how to quiet the mind. And so they tried everything: warm drinks, whispered chants, face directions, memories, breath rhythms. A full library of trial, error, and patience, etched permanently into clay. You find another inscription, nearly faded. "If a man wakes too often, count backward from 60. If he forgets the numbers, begin again. Do not judge. Begin again." There is such grace in it, so much more than a tip or remedy. It reads like a philosophy. Across the table, the woman lights another oil lamp. The flame dances against the wall, casting shadows of her face, her hands, the tablets themselves, timeless in their form, and still speaking. She picks up a small stylus made from a pointed reed and presses it gently into a fresh clay slab. Slowly, deliberately, she adds a new line. She turns the slab toward you. The cuneiform symbols are fresh, still damp, but beside it she writes a rough translation. "Tonight, let the fire burn low. Let the mind walk gently. Let the old ways return." You close your eyes for a moment. Not to sleep, yet, but to listen. The room is quiet, save for the oil's gentle hiss and the sound of clay settling into itself. You imagine 1,000 nights just like this, insomniacs leaning over warm tablets, scribes preserving the dreams of others, healers trying to understand the rhythm of rest. In a world without pills or electricity, these people turn to rhythm, story, and stars. And somehow, across all this time, their wisdom still hums beneath the surface of modern sleep. You stand slowly. The woman nods again. No thanks are needed. Outside, the stars remain. The wind is soft. And somewhere, a sheep calls out in the distance, as if reminding you that the counting is never really finished, it just changes form. The temple at dusk. The clay tablets remain in your thoughts long after you leave the scribe's dwelling. Their wisdom lingers like the fading scent of incense, subtle but steady, almost woven into your breath. Night deepens as you walk slowly through the village, past low walls, darkened homes, and doorways where the glow of oil lamps flickers behind reed curtains. The stars now seem closer, as if the heavens have descended slightly, curious to listen in on this quiet world. Your feet carry you toward the highest point in the village, a place neither home nor marketplace, neither private nor public. It stands apart, not in size but in spirit, the temple. Built of darkened stone and aged clay, the temple rises modestly against the night. Its lines are simple. Its purpose, not. This is where breath slows. Where voices fall into rhythm. Where waking and dreaming press gently against each other, like the meeting of two waves. As you approach, you feel it before you hear it, the low hum of voices, resonating deep within the earth. Not loud. Not commanding. But steady. Like something ancient breathing through human mouths. You step through the temple's narrow entrance, and the world shifts again. Inside, The light is dim and gold. Dozens of oil lamps sit in carved wall niches or hang from thin chains. They glow like stars behind a veil. The shadows they cast ripple gently over clay walls and the folded robes of those seated in quiet clusters. The air is thick with incense, sweet and smoky, like dried flowers soaked in old memory. It clings to your skin, seeps into your lungs, and slows your pulse. Every breath is a small ritual. You take a seat along the wall, on a cushion that smells faintly of lavender and wool. Around you, worshippers rest, not kneeling, not pleading, just being. Some close their eyes. Others sway gently. Many simply breathe, their chests rising and falling in time with the sound at the center of the room. It is there that you see them, the priests. 5 of them, robed in deep indigo, stand in a loose circle. Their eyes are closed. Their arms hang loosely at their sides. But their mouths move slowly, releasing sound in perfect, unhurried unity. They are chanting. The chant is not a song, exactly. Nor a prayer in the way you might expect. It is slower than language and more fluid than music. The syllables rise and fall like breath, elongated vowels, deep consonants, occasional pauses where silence itself becomes part of the offering. You do not understand the words. But you feel them. Each one a step. A soft footfall on the bridge between day and night. Behind the priests, a raised stone platform holds simple offerings, a bowl of dates, a folded cloth, a carved sheep figure, and a shallow dish of water. Nothing grand. Just gentle reminders of life's stillness. A priestess moves quietly along the edge of the room, placing small drops of fragrant oil onto the coals of a burner. Each drop hisses softly and releases new layers of scent, cinnamon, frankincense, and something floral you cannot name. The combination of chant, scent, and flickering light begins to blur time. You are not sure how long you've sat here. A minute? An hour? It doesn't matter. You feel a loosening inside you. Thoughts that had been buzzing now simply float. Tensions, small and unspoken, dissolve like salt in warm water. This is not a place to speak or seek answers. It is a place to remember how to be quiet. The woman next to you, perhaps a mother, leans her head gently against the stone wall and closes her eyes. A child rests beside her, legs tucked under a woolen shawl, already breathing the slow breath of sleep. The priest's voices shift subtly, slower now, deeper. It feels like a descent, though nothing about it is heavy. Just softer. Like the language of dreams inching closer. Then comes a sound that surprises you, not from the priests, but from somewhere deeper in the temple. A soft splash of water. Not ritualistic, just ordinary. Perhaps someone washing their hands. But it fits. Every sound in this space belongs. You glance up to the ceiling, high and dark. A few small holes allow moonlight to filter through, forming silver beams that drift down like blessings. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the chant wrap around you. It doesn't demand sleep, but it welcomes it, invites it in like an old friend who no longer knocks at the door. In this sacred room, sleep is not something to chase or conquer. It is a spirit to be honored. A visitor you prepare for with scent and sound and silence. Somewhere in the recesses of your thoughts, you recall a tablet from earlier, chant and breath time. Inhale for 4. Hum for 8. Now you understand where such a rhythm may have been born. You open your eyes slowly. The chanting continues, but softer now, more like a memory than a present action. Some worshippers have already drifted into sleep where they sit. Others remain in stillness, awake, perhaps, but far from where they began. The priestess returns, walking between those gathered, offering a final pass of fragrant smoke from a small bronze burner. She moves like a dream herself, barefoot, unhurried, with no need to be seen or followed. You rise quietly, giving the stone floor one last glance. No one watches you leave. Not because they don't care, but because they trust that what brought you here will carry you onward. You step into the night once again. The stars have not moved, but you have. And the chant lingers in your breath, as if the temple has woven itself into your body. Not every sleep begins with a bed. Sometimes, it begins with stone. And sound. And the soft hush of sacred twilight. Ziggurat's sleepy silence. Section 6 to 1000 to 1200 words. The chants from the temple are still with you, like threads of sound woven gently into your thoughts, as you walk quietly through the night once more. There is one more place to visit before sleep finds you. You've seen it from nearly every corner of the village, the ziggurat. Towering above rooftops, it rises in step layers like a mountain sculpted by human hands. It is not grand in the way modern towers are grand. There is no metal, no glass, but it is powerful. Earth and stone arranged with patience and reverence. Tonight, it waits for you in silence. The base of the ziggurat is broad, solid, warm even in the cool air. The moonlight spills across its surfaces, catching in the corners where each terrace meets the next. You begin to climb. The steps are wide, worn smooth by centuries of feet. Pilgrims, priests, farmers, kings. People of every kind once made this same quiet ascent, not seeking spectacle, but something softer. Something inward. The first few steps are slow. You feel the cool stone beneath your soles and the faint brush of wind that rises just slightly with each level. It carries the scent of baked earth, and further up, something else, faint traces of old incense or wind-blown grain. As you ascend, the village below begins to shrink, like a child curling into sleep. You can still see the glimmer of firelight behind a few doors. The temple dome glows faintly, but all else is hushed. Higher still, your steps begin to match the rhythm of your breath. One step, inhale. Another, exhale. The pattern calms you. You reach the second terrace, then the third. Each level brings with it more wind, more space, more sky. The stars above feel closer now, as if descending toward you while the world below falls away. At the top, finally, you step out onto the final platform. There is no roof here. No ceiling but the night. The sky is vast, stretched wide and open above your head, a black sea freckled with light. You stand for a moment and simply let it surround you. The air is cool and clean. The wind hums faintly across the stones, carrying no voices, no footsteps, just itself. A few smooth stone benches circle the top. You sit, slowly, letting your body relax completely. There is no chant here, no ritual, no spoken prayers. But everything feels sacred. You remember something you heard earlier in the temple, how people once came here not to ask for things, but simply to be. This ziggurat was more than a monument. It was a threshold between the ground and the heavens. A place to shed the noise of the world and breathe with the stars. Some say it was built for the gods to descend. Others believed it brought humans closer to the divine. But tonight, it feels like both, and neither. What matters is not who you meet here, but how you feel here. And right now, you feel still. Around you, the shadows stretch long and soft. The edges of the platform blur into the dark, as if the stone is dissolving into sky. Above, the constellations turn slowly, ancient shapes once named by shepherds and astronomers long gone. You think again of the herders from the hills, counting sheep beneath this same sky. You imagine them looking up from their flocks, whispering numbers with tired smiles, their minds quieting with each breath. Somewhere far below, a dog barks once, then nothing. You lie back against the stone, cool, solid, grounding, and watch the stars without thought. The wind brushes gently across your face like a hand smoothing hair. You wonder how many people over the centuries have fallen asleep right here. You wonder how many of them were dreamers, like the ones who etched advice into clay tablets. Or the mothers singing lullabies near the river. Or the temple priests who sang not to impress, but to soothe. You are not alone, not really. This place has held the weight of sleepers for millennia. It has listened to fears whispered into the dark. It has welcomed silence again and again. It does so now. You close your eyes. You don't try to sleep. That isn't the point. You simply rest, with the wind and the stone and the stars. You let your breath slow. You count nothing. You just are. And somewhere, deep within you, something releases. Lullabies by the Euphrates. Section 7 to 1000 to 1200 words. The stars above the ziggurat hold you a little longer than expected. You lie in stillness, your breath a slow echo of the wind, until the night begins to fold inward, beckoning you back down. When you finally descend the steps, the village no longer feels like a place full of people and tasks. It feels like part of the earth's own sleep, low, warm, hushed. You walk without hurry, your feet tracing familiar soil, though the night has made everything softer. You let the paths guide you, not asking where they lead. You are done seeking. Now, you simply follow. Soon, you hear it. Not loud, not insistent, but present, woven into the rustle of reeds and the quiet lap of water. A melody. Human. Ancient. You move toward the river. The Euphrates glides beside the village like a mother's hand beside her sleeping child, close, steady, always listening. Even at night, it hums, not in words, but in rhythm. And tonight, it carries something more, voices. You reach the edge of the village where low mud brick walls give way to soft riverbanks. The soil is darker here, rich with water and time. Lanterns swing gently on hooked poles, casting trembling halos over small gathering spots tucked between trees and rushes. There, beneath the starlit sky, mothers sing. Not in chorus, not in performance, but in the way only mothers can, each voice tender, slightly worn, tuned to the breath of the child cradled in her arms or curled in her lap. You settle onto the bank without a sound. The lullabies flow like the river itself, soft, layered, unhurried. The lyrics drift in and out of hearing, but even the words you do not understand settle deeply into you. One mother sings of sheep, counting them one by one, not aloud but within the rhythm of her voice. Another hums a melody that names the stars, pointing them out as if they were family. A third weaves a lullaby of wind and warm milk and footsteps returning home. You see a child curl tighter into his blanket as the song around him melts into dreams. Another, still half awake, plays idly with the end of his mother's braid, his fingers slowing with each verse. This is not a performance. There are no instruments. No applause. These songs are not meant to entertain. They are meant to hold. Each voice is part of a lineage older than writing. Passed from mother to daughter, father to child, whispered into the dark long before alphabets claimed sound. These are lullabies from a time when stars were closer, when gods walked in fields, when dreams were considered holy. You lean back against a tree trunk, its bark warm from the day's sun. A gentle breeze moves through the reeds, rustling them in time with the river's breathing. Across the water, a frog chirps once. Then silence again, except for the lullabies. A woman beside you, perhaps a grandmother, rocks a sleepy toddler wrapped in wool. She doesn't sing so much as murmur, lines that seem half-spoken, half-remembered. Sleep, my sheep, beneath the moon. Stars will count your dreams too soon. 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars fall. Night will catch and keep them all. The rhyme is simple, but something in it stirs you. A memory you never lived. A kind of comfort that lives beyond explanation. You realize suddenly that the river itself seems to be listening. Each ripple catches part of the song and carries it downstream, toward other villages, other banks, other sleepers. Somewhere far from here, a farmer may hear it in his dreams. A herder on a hillside might hum it without knowing why. You sit in this cradle of sound and water and wind for what feels like both a breath and a lifetime. There is no need to move. Sleep does not knock here. It wades gently up from the river, climbs into laps, settles onto shoulders. Even the insects seem to buzz in tune with the melodies. The night continues, but time stops. Some mothers stay until the child in their arms is fully asleep, then carry them inside. Others linger longer, perhaps for themselves, to hold stillness a little longer before returning to their own beds. You notice one woman singing softly even after her child has fallen asleep, her voice more for the night now than anyone listening. You wonder how many of these lullabies will survive tomorrow. And yet, somehow, you know they will. Even if the words change, even if the singers change, the feeling remains. Sleep has always had music. And it always will. Eventually, you rise. Not because you are ready, but because the moment has held you long enough. You walk once more through the village, the river still singing behind you, though you now carry part of its melody in your chest. The kind of melody that lingers even in silence. The kind that follows you into dreams. A market of sleepy curiosities. Section 8 to 1000 to 1200 words. By now, the night has softened everything. The sky remains velvet black, scattered with stars that blink as if drowsy themselves. Behind you, the river still hums with lullabies, and the stone path ahead begins to widen, its direction now guided by scent and sound rather than intention. You find yourself at the edge of the village marketplace, where even under starlight, it hums with a kind of quiet life. Unlike the bustling trade of daylight, filled with goats and grain and shouted barters, this version of the market is different. Slower. Sleepier. The air is laced with the perfume of dried herbs, warm honey, and something faintly smoky. Low lanterns glow behind woven stalls, illuminating peddlers who speak in hushed tones, as if not to disturb the dreams of the goods they sell. You wander past tables laid with trinkets, odd bottles, and baskets of soft things. No one calls out to you. There is no pressure to buy, only the invitation to linger. You pause by a clay vendor's table, where small ceramic jars are arranged like an offering. Each is sealed with wax and wrapped in palm fiber string. A small handwritten tag dangles from one, honeyroot tonic, stir into warm goat's milk. You lift it to your nose and breathe in a scent both sweet and earthy, like sugar kissed by soil. The vendor, a man with silver threads in his beard, leans forward, voice almost a whisper. That one's good for heavy heads. Slows the mind, smooths the breath. You nod. Not in agreement, but in understanding. Next to him, a younger woman sells charms carved from stone and dry wood. One in particular draws your eye, a tiny lamb curled in sleep, its features soft but deliberate. It fits in your palm like a secret. The vendor smiles knowingly. Lambs keep away the racing thoughts. You keep one near your pillow, they say your dreams stay gentle. You tuck the carved lamb into your pocket without speaking. Something about it feels right, like it's been waiting for you for a very long time. Moving deeper into the stalls, you find a tent lined with woven pillows, some shaped like clouds, others long and curved like river reeds. The vendor here sits barefoot, cross-legged among her wares, threading dried lavender into bundles. She doesn't speak, only gestures for you to sit. You do. She places a pillow in your lap, soft and cool. You press into it and feel the faintest give, like moss or breath. She motions for you to rest your head. You hesitate, then do. Just for a moment. Your eyes close without effort. Around you, the market continues in silence. Someone lights a stick of incense. A trader pours a viscous blue liquid into tiny vials. A mother nearby tests the softness of a reed-filled mat, running her palm across it like she's brushing her child's hair. Even in this sleepy market, everyone is seeking something small to bring with them into the night. You sit up slowly, returning the pillow with quiet thanks. The vendor only nods. At a spice stall, you're drawn in by rows of hanging bundles, clove, anise, dried orange peel, and something unfamiliar that smells of wet bark and chamomile. The vendor offers a sachet wrapped in linen. Boil this in water, he says, then place the bowl beneath your bed. The steam will chase restlessness away. Nearby, an elderly man in robes stirs a slow simmering pot. The mixture inside bubbles gently, releasing a scent of roasted nuts and mint. He hands you a small clay cup. Sumer's night drink, he explains. Made for dreams that wander too fast. You take a sip. The warmth travels down your throat and blooms in your chest. It doesn't make you sleepy. It makes you still. As you continue down the path of stalls, you realize something. The traders here are not selling cures. They're offering companions, small, gentle objects to hold your hand into sleep. None of them promise perfection. None of them guarantee slumber. Instead, they remind you that the journey to rest is often a matter of ritual, not remedy. You see a child weaving a necklace from thread soaked in river clay. She ties a feather at the end and explains it's for hanging near a window, so that night winds carry away bad dreams. You smile, not at the charm, but at the belief behind it. At the final stall, you find an elderly woman writing on papyrus by the light of a dim oil lamp. Her table is empty save for short verses written in delicate script. Sleep prayers, she tells you. Not for gods. For the body. For the bones. You read one: let my breath match the rivers. Let my thoughts drift like boats. Let no dream anchor too deep. Let me wake only when the stars have bowed. You copy the words down, tucking the page into your robe. You leave the market slowly, your pockets a little heavier, your thoughts a little lighter. The sleepy curiosities of this sun-worn marketplace don't promise dreams, they prepare the path for them. They soften the edges of waking life so sleep can find its place, like water finding a hollow in the sand. Behind you, the market flickers quietly, each stall a small fire in the dark. Ahead of you, rest, a scribe's dream diary. The quiet of the marketplace still lingers in your steps as you drift back through the hushed city, your pockets carrying traces of dreams, charms, poems, the scent of dried lavender and fire-warmed honey root. The air grows cooler, and the sounds of the night settle into a hush as fine as dust on stone. As the street narrows, you notice a small archway half swallowed by ivy and shadow. Something draws you in, perhaps the faint flicker of lamplight or a pull quieter than curiosity. You step inside. It is not a temple, nor a home. This space is older, less touched. A kind of study tucked behind mud brick walls. Scrolls lie bundled in corners. Clay tablets rest in shallow niches carved directly into the walls. Dust dances like slow snow in the thin beam of a flickering oil lamp. There's no one here now. But someone was, recently. You see a writing stool still warm, and a reed stylus resting in a small bowl of water to keep its point supple. Then, in the center of a stone desk, a single clay tablet, smoothed and etched with careful, deliberate lines. You step closer, then kneel, brushing a fingertip gently over its surface. It is not an official record. Not a merchant's tally or a priest's chant. It's something more personal. Intimate. A dream diary. The etching is old but legible. The Sumerian symbols unfold like murmurs. Last night, I followed a sheep with golden fleece. It spoke not in words, but in rhythm. Each step, a pulse. Each breath, a lull. I followed it across fields that glowed beneath moons I have never seen. You pause. The next entry is dated just a few nights later. I saw the same sheep again, this time, with wings. It led me to a river that ran backward. There, I placed my hands in the water and forgot all names but my own. This isn't simply a diary. It's a record of inner pilgrimage, one shaped by the mind at rest, the heart unguarded. You can almost see him, this weary scribe, returning from the market with a lamp charm in his satchel, perhaps a cup of tonic in his hand, and writing in the flickering calm just before dawn. He gave his sleeplessness a voice. And in doing so, he invited the mysterious and the sacred to answer. As you read further, the sheep begins to take on many forms. Once, it stood atop a ziggurat, waiting. When I reached it, the wind ceased, and I slept for days. The stars watched, but did not speak. Another night, the sheep grew enormous, its fleece covering the horizon. I curled beneath it like a child. Its breathing became thunder. Yet I was not afraid. You realize that the sheep in his dreams wasn't just an animal. It was a symbol, a guide, a guardian, maybe even a deity. In a world where gods rode on wind and dreams were treated like oracles, perhaps the sheep was both messenger and map. It makes sense, doesn't it? In a culture that lived close to the land, where herders counted sheep not only for safety but for serenity, the image of the sheep would become more than livestock. It would enter the language of myth, of spirit, of dreams. In this journal, That transformation lives quietly. You read one final passage before resting your hands in your lap. The sheep does not lead me away, it leads me inward. It walks ahead, yes, but the path folds back into the heart. I wake not knowing where I've been, but always feeling returned. The oil lamp beside the tablet begins to sputter. You rise slowly, as though not to disturb the silence that now feels shared. Before leaving, you take a moment to gently cover the tablet with a cloth, out of respect, or maybe reverence. In this small stone room, the scribe's insomnia became a map to sacred places. His sheep, not counted but followed, became a metaphor for the slow surrender into sleep, the soul's gentle drift toward stillness. You step back into the night, and the stars feel closer somehow. You can't help but wonder, how many other dreamers, long ago, whispered to the night with stylus and clay. How many stories of sleep, wandering sheep, and silent moons lie buried beneath layers of time, waiting for someone to listen. And maybe more importantly, how many of our own dreams, tonight, will carry echoes of theirs. Counting games beneath the stars. The scribe's dream journal still lingers in your thoughts as you return to the village pathways, now softened by night. The moon casts long shadows along the mud brick walls, and the air smells faintly of roasted barley and cooling earth. It's evening now, the kind of evening when time feels suspended, neither rushed nor idle, just full. You follow the gentle hum of voices and laughter, weaving between low homes and oil-lit doorways, until you reach the edge of the village square. There, beneath the sky bursting with stars, people have gathered. The scene feels timeless. Children sit cross-legged in circles, their eyes wide with sleepiness and wonder. Elders recline on woven mats or lean against walls still warm from the day's sun. A breeze carries with it the smell of crushed mint and the distant murmur of the Euphrates. Above, constellations shimmer like ancient script written across the heavens. You take a place among them, feeling the soft pull of community, of ritual, of belonging. Someone begins the first game. A small girl with braids recites a chant from memory. Each line describes a sheep, one with a golden horn, one who hides among stars, one who walks backward through the night. The children must remember the order, adding their own sheep as the circle grows. A game of memory, but also imagination, and rhythm. A boy forgets a line and laughter spills like honey across the gathering. But no one teases. These are not games for winning. These are games for softening the mind, for letting the day fall away. An older man begins the next game, his voice gravelly and patient. I saw a sheep by the riverbank, he says, wearing a crown of pomegranate seeds. Who did it belong to? A girl raises her hand. The moon goddess, she whispers. The man nods, pleased. And what did she say when she saw it? The girl thinks. She said, even dreams need shepherds. Gasps and delighted murmurs ripple through the crowd. This is the rhythm here, creativity fed by memory, memory shaped by myth. Each tale is both game and lullaby, a way to lead the mind down gentler paths. Another elder claps twice and begins a familiar tale, the one about the sheep that refused to sleep. Everyone knows it, but still they listen. The sheep runs through wheat fields, leaps over canals, avoids every trick, until an old baker offers it a piece of honeyed bread, and the sheep, at last, curls up beside the oven. It's part bedtime story, part joke, part ritual. The children giggle. One of them yawns mid-laugh. That's the point, after all. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the cadence of voices, the flicker of lanterns, the low pulse of laughter wash over you. It's not just entertainment, it's the village weaving sleep. Not forcing it, but luring it gently with the threads of memory, myth, and play. Nearby, someone begins stacking tiny stones in a line, one for each imagined sheep. It's a counting game, but also a meditation. Stack too fast, and they fall. Stack with care, and they rise like a shepherd's path into the night. A mother leans over and whispers to her son, how many sheep before the stars disappear? The boy whispers back, half asleep, 12. No, 20. Or maybe just one, if it's the right one. Another child speaks up suddenly, my sheep has wings. It flies me to the dream mountain. An elder smiles, brushing his beard. And what's at the top of the mountain? More sheep, the child says, eyes fluttering. All sleeping. Even the adults chuckle softly. The line between waking and dreaming thins here, shaped by stories passed from mouth to mouth, memory to memory, like shared warmth. No one rushes the children to bed. There's no need. The games do the work, slowing the pulse, lowering the volume of the day, anchoring hearts in softness. Each chant and tale is like a step away from the worries of the waking world and toward something ancient, instinctive, and kind. You realize that these rituals, while playful, serve a deeper purpose. In a world without clocks or electricity, this is how people synchronize their spirits with the night. Not by force, but by repetition. Familiarity. Joy. And in the sheep, counted, imagined, storied, there's something universal. A bridge between earth and stars. Between the predictable and the unknowable. Between today and tomorrow. The final game is simple. One elder hums a tune, and the others take turns singing lines over it, each describing the dream they hope for tonight. I dream of silver water. I dream of breath that sings. I dream of a sky without end. I dream of nothing. Just sleep. And with that, the circle begins to fade. Children are carried to beds. Elders linger, whispering like leaves in wind. The square empties slowly, naturally, as though guided by a tide no one questions. You remain for a moment longer, watching the stars blink through shifting clouds. Somewhere in the distance, a soft bleat echoes, real or remembered, it doesn't matter. Sleep has already begun. The blessing of the priestess. The village has mostly fallen into slumber. Soft silence nestles between the mud brick walls. Faint snoring hums through doorways, and the stars still shine like tiny oil lamps across the Mesopotamian sky. Yet one figure remains awake, not to play, not to guard, but to bless. She moves slowly through the village's winding paths, her robes catching whispers of breeze as if the night itself follows her. The priestess walks barefoot, and though her steps make no sound on the packed earth, those who've received her blessing say they feel her presence long after she's gone. Some claim her footsteps alone can quiet an unsettled heart, that her shadow carries dreams in it. You watch as she pauses before a doorway. The home belongs to an older couple with no children. Their oil lamp flickers faintly, as if unsure whether to stay lit or surrender to the dark. The priestess pulls a small pouch from her sash and gently scatters dried lavender and mint leaves across the threshold. Then, with a voice no louder than a breath, she begins to chant. It's not a song with words, exactly. It's more of a vibration, a hum that seems to echo from somewhere deeper than the throat. A vibration that seems to know exactly how the night should sound. You follow her, quietly, respectfully, as she enters the home. The interior is modest, woven mats, a clay jug of water, a few stone bowls. She moves slowly from room to room. Her hand brushes the lintel above the doorway, then hovers over the bed as if sweeping away the invisible residue of worry or noise. She murmurs blessings, not to be heard by ears but felt by the bones. There's no rush. At the foot of the bed, she places a bundle of herbs tied with a reed string. Mugwort, sage, a touch of anise. Their scents are subtle but warm, earthy, calming, familiar. She rests one palm on the mat and whispers once more. Then she leaves as quietly as she came. Outside, the village has fallen even deeper into stillness, as if the night itself is exhaling. The priestess approaches another home, this one lively, still gently buzzing with the whispers of children who fought sleep a little longer than they should. The mother bows slightly as the priestess enters, holding the door open with both hands, gratitude visible even in her silence. Again, the ritual begins. From the entrance to the hearth, from the hearth to the sleeping spaces. A branch dipped in scented water is flicked softly against doorposts. A strip of linen is tied around a bundle of grain. The priestess murmurs blessings for full dreams, for safe sleep, for hearts that release the weight of the day. The children are already curled on their mats, and though their eyes flutter, none wake. One stirs slightly as she passes and sighs deeply, a sound like surrender. The kind of sigh that only comes when you know you're being looked after. You wonder, is this ceremony for the gods? For the people? Or simply for the feeling that someone has walked through your door with the express purpose of making sure you sleep well? The answer, perhaps, is yes to all three. In ancient Sumer, sleep was not taken for granted. It was something invited, nurtured, protected. The body didn't fall into it by accident, it was guided there, often by hands like these. The priestess exits into the street again, and for a moment she stands still beneath the stars. Her head tilts upward, her lips moving in silent prayer. Whether she speaks to the moon, the night wind, or forgotten sleep deities, you can't say. But the hush that follows feels like acknowledgement. Something has heard her, and agreed. She continues on. The homes she visits are marked with faint signs, a carved symbol near the door, or a small string of beads above the lintel. These are signals for the priestess, invitations, permissions, quiet requests. Some families see her once a month. Others only when sleep becomes scarce. But everyone, at one time or another, has been soothed by her silent presence. They say her mother was a priestess, too. And her grandmother. That this wisdom is passed down not with books but by example, by walking, blessing, listening, waiting. They also say she never speaks above a whisper, even during the day. That her dreams are not her own, but borrowed from those she blesses. That the herbs she carries are harvested under a new moon, when the world is clean and receptive. You follow her to the final home of the evening. A young man greets her. His face is drawn, eyes hollowed with too many sleepless nights. He doesn't bow or speak. He only stands back and lets her pass. This time, the blessing takes longer. The priestess lingers at the threshold, then moves inside with intent. She opens small clay jars, letting oils warm against her palms before brushing them along the room's corners. She sings, not to the man, but to the space. Her voice threads itself through the air like incense smoke, curling around whatever anxiety might be hiding in the walls. When she is done, she places a small carved token beneath his pillow, shaped like a sleeping lamb. He doesn't ask what it means. He only nods. Later, he will sleep. And even if he doesn't remember his dreams, he will know that someone cared enough to prepare a place for them. Forgotten gods of sleep. The night has deepened. The village sleeps. Even the stars seem quieter now, as if dimmed by the heaviness of rest that blankets the land. You wander alone, past homes marked by the priestess's blessings, past the flickering final embers of hearths slowly fading to ash. And then, from within a forgotten alcove near the city's edge, you find something curious, a carved panel, aged and worn, half buried beneath a layer of crumbling earth and wind-blown straw. You kneel to brush it off. The image is faint but intact, a figure reclining in a posture of calm, with eyes closed and arms gently raised. Around them swirl lines like mist, like clouds, or perhaps dreams. A sheep curls at their feet. Above, crescent moons and stars are etched in crude, reverent strokes. Beneath it, an inscription you can barely read, to Shulmalu, keeper of soft nights. You frown, because the name isn't familiar. Not like Inanna or Enki. This god, if it was a god, doesn't appear in the grand temple hymns or heroic tales. But in the quiet corners of Sumer's spiritual world, there were others, lesser deities whose power resided not in war or harvests or floodwaters, but in the spaces in between. Like the space between wakefulness and sleep. You begin asking around. In the morning, when the marketplace is open again, you speak to an elderly charm seller who's been carving amulets longer than most have been alive. She nods when you describe the symbol. That's the breath giver, she says. One of the dream guardians. We used to leave milk by the door for him when my brother had nightmares. Another vendor, a young man selling reed mats, recalls a tale told by his grandmother, of a goddess named Ikaraya, who walked the night air like perfume and carried sleep in a clay jar. Children who saw her were said to drift into dreams where rivers ran backward and stars whispered secrets. None of these names are recorded in official hymns, but you start noticing signs, symbols etched faintly into stone thresholds, old lullabies that contain odd references to the Lamb of Stillness or He who watches through closed eyes. Bits and pieces scattered like grains along the edges of history. You seek out a scribe, older than most buildings in town, who welcomes you into his dark clay-walled study with a knowing smile. His shelves grown with tablets, most of them ignored by younger scholars. When you ask about dream gods, he does not hesitate. They've been forgotten, he says, but they were never unimportant. Sleep was once sacred. Dreams were considered messages. And where messages were sent, there were always messengers. He pulls a cracked tablet from a cloth and reads, "To Ishagil, soft bringer, who walks the vale, whose footfall hushes the jackal's howl, whose breath cools the fevered man. Grant peace through the door of night." Another text, half destroyed, mentions Nathura, the so-called dream weaver, said to knot the threads of thought into visions each night, untangling the worries of the day before sending sleep. But these names, Shilmalu, Ikaraya, Ishagil, Nathura, never made it into the stone ziggurats or state-sanctioned rituals. These gods lived quietly, in the homes of farmers, herders, mothers, and scribes. Carried in whispered prayers. Marked in chalk symbols on headboards. Invoked not in grandeur but in desperation, when a child wouldn't sleep, or when grief robbed a family of rest. You begin to understand, while the grand gods ruled the world's noise, these others watched over its silences. They were invoked in lullabies, in oil poured at dusk, in feather-stuffed talismans shaped like clouds. One dream journal mentions a god who only appears in the first second of sleep, a flicker of presence that settles the spirit before the dream itself begins. You recall the priestess from the night before, how her chants moved like mist, how her blessings calmed even empty rooms. Perhaps she too calls on these gods. Or perhaps she is what remains of them, a living echo. By dusk the next day, you find yourself standing again before the carving of Shulmalu. You sit in front of it for a long time, until the sky darkens and the village grows quiet once more. You imagine what it was like long ago, when sleep was a sacred offering, when dreams weren't idle nonsense but divine communication, and when the gods of rest were as revered as the gods of war. You take a piece of chalk and draw one of their symbols on your own sleeping mat that night, a spiral overlaid with a crescent and a sheep's hoof print. You don't know if they're still listening, but you sleep better than you have in weeks. And in your dreams, you hear footsteps like feathers and see a figure robed in moonlight. You don't remember their name, but you know exactly who they are. Moonlit stories from the fields. The night stretches on. After visiting the forgotten gods of dreams, you find yourself drawn away from the city's walls, down a worn path into the fields. The buzz of the marketplace and the chants of the temple now feel like distant echoes. Out here, it's just earth, air, and the slow breath of nature beneath the moon. The scent of tilled soil hangs gently in the air, mingling with the perfume of crushed grass and warm hay. You follow the glow of lanterns bobbing in the distance, guiding you like stars across a sea of wheat. The voices come into focus first, low, rhythmic, familiar. You approach a circle of farmers, seated on woven mats and overturned baskets beneath an open sky. One of them gestures for you to join, and you sit. The lantern at the circle's center flickers orange and gold, casting soft shadows on tired faces. These are people of the soil. Their hands are calloused from harvest, their skin browned by the sun and weathered by wind. But their voices are gentle, almost reverent, as they speak of dreams, not grand prophecies or temple visions, but quiet, humble dreams. And always, the sheep are at the center of it all. Sheep, says an older man with a crooked smile, aren't just woolen meat. They listen better than people. They watch the night like it's a story written in stars. He points toward the flock in the distance, barely visible shapes on a nearby hill, still grazing under moonlight. You ever watch one long enough? Another asks. You'll notice. They move a certain way just before sleep comes to you. You can almost feel it, like the gods whisper through them. The group chuckles. This isn't superstition to them, it's something deeper. Older than stories, older than written tablets. A truth passed from hand to hand like water from a clay jug. One of the women, middle-aged and thoughtful, begins telling a tale her mother told her. They say that in the old days, sheep were messengers of the gods of sleep. Not the big ones, the quiet ones. The gods no one talks about anymore. The ones who live in dreams and rest in silence. If a shepherd could count their flock without losing track, without being distracted, it meant his spirit was calm enough to enter the dream realm. But if he lost count, it meant his soul was still too tangled in the waking world. Another man nods solemnly. There was a woman in my village, he says, who couldn't sleep for weeks. The priestess tried her chance, the market sold her every potion there was. Nothing helped. Then one night, she just sat and watched the sheep, watched them move and breathe. Listen to the soft rustle of their wool, their quiet chewing. She fell asleep right there in the field. Slept till sunrise. They pass around a bowl of warm grain milk, infused with something sweet and earthy. You sip. The taste is simple and grounding. Someone throws a bit of dried root into the small fire, and it releases a faint calming scent, something between cinnamon and sage. See that star? The older man says, pointing to a faint one just above the horizon. We call that the lamb's eye. My grandfather said if it's bright, it means the sleep gods are watching. You look up. The sky is velvet black and endless, scattered with stars so steady they feel eternal. The sheep continue their soft shuffle in the field. You begin to feel it too, that subtle rhythm. That invisible connection between breath, body, and the world around you. The crackle of fire, the rustle of wool, the slow arc of a herder's shadow across the grass. Here, stories aren't told to impress. They are shared like cold blankets, meant to wrap the body, soften the edge of wakefulness, and guide it gently into stillness. Someone recites a poem, half in whisper. Let the sheep move like thoughts. One by one, soft-footed. Let the stars blink slower and the wind hold its breath till sleep takes your hand. No one claps. That's not the point. They just sit for a while in silence, honoring the truth in the verse. You begin to understand something ancient and quiet, that sleep isn't something to be chased, but something to be invited. Lured gently, not forced. And sheep, simple, humble sheep, have always known the way. You look back toward the city. The lights are distant now. Faint glimmers at the edge of the earth. But here in the fields, time flows differently. Here, rest is not ritual or remedy. It's rhythm. A living dialogue between people, animals, and the gods who never needed temples to be present. As the lantern burns lower, someone pulls a blanket tighter. Another leans back and sighs. One by one, the farmers drift into sleep right there in the circle, trusting the stars to watch them and the sheep to guide their dreams. And you lie back on the earth, the grain milk still warming your chest, the fire painting shadows on your eyelids. You close your eyes. You think of the sheep on the hillside, their shapes melting into the night. And as your mind begins its slow descent into dream, you hear it, soft, steady, eternal. 1, 2, 3. The Sleepless King. As you leave the quiet fields behind, your path leads upward, away from open skies and the soft murmurs of farmers, toward the grand stone walls of the palace. Here, in the heart of Sumer, power and rest collide in a very different way. The palace sits like a city unto itself, a labyrinth of courtyards, columns, and chambers where the day's affairs weigh heavily on its ruler. It is here you learn of a king, a man whose nights are long and restless, haunted by worries that no amount of decree or ceremony seems to soothe. They say his chambers are draped in the finest silks, shimmering softly in the candlelight, a contrast to the rough clay and reed homes below. Yet even the softness of these fabrics cannot catch sleep's gentle hand. The king tosses and turns, eyes darting beneath heavy lids, his breath shallow and uneven. He has tried everything known to his people, and some things that seem stranger still. One courtier whispers that the ceilings of his bedchamber are carved with tiny sheep, each figure painstakingly sculpted in intricate detail. They are arranged in a pattern meant to invite calm, to mimic the age-old practice of counting sheep to soothe a racing mind. The king, they say, traces these carvings with his eyes laid into the night, hoping the silent flock will herd his thoughts toward rest. But the remedy is elusive. A personal priest attends the king, an older man with a calm voice and steady hands. He murmurs prayers and chants into the king's ears as he lies awake. These whispered blessings are said to mimic the rhythm of breath, slow and even, like a lullaby in a foreign tongue. The priest's presence alone is thought to ease the king's restless spirit, even if sleep remains just out of reach. In quieter moments, you overhear tales of herbal infusions brought from distant lands, rare oils and powders spread across the royal pillow, and rituals involving the soft lighting of incense to fill the air with scents designed to soothe. Despite all, the king's mind clings stubbornly to wakefulness. His eyes sometimes stare at the stars through lattice windows, seeking the same peace that shepherds and farmers find under the open sky. Yet the weight of his crown presses down, turning sleep into a luxury he cannot afford. The palace itself seems to breathe with tension. Stone corridors echo faint footsteps and whispered plans, but rarely the sound of calm breathing or deep slumber. One night, as the moon hangs low and heavy, you find yourself near the king's chamber. The soft glow of a lamp spills into a hallway. The priest's voice rises in a gentle chant. The king's sigh floats through the door. In this intimate moment, you glimpse a truth hidden beneath royal grandeur. Sleep is not a privilege, nor a simple comfort, it is a delicate gift, one that even kings must earn through patience, ritual, and the hope carried on the backs of silent, carved sheep. You think back to the fields, to the farmers watching their flock under the stars, and to the village children playing their counting games. The king's struggle is part of the same ancient story, a story written in breath, shadow, and the quiet power of rest. Outside, the palace is silent again. The night deepens, and the stars watch as they always have. And somewhere, in the stillness, sleep begins to whisper. The night fades over Sumer. As the first pale fingers of dawn begin to touch the horizon, the vibrant tapestry of Sumerian night gently unwinds. The once lively murmur of voices softens, the flicker of oil lamps grows faint, and the restless stirrings of the day's end settle into calm stillness. You find yourself standing quietly on a low hill overlooking the village, the palace, the fields, an entire civilization slowly folding into rest beneath the awakening sky. The sheep, those ancient companions of sleepless minds and dreaming hearts, have nestled together in the soft embrace of shadowed pens. Their breathing slows and synchronizes with the fading rhythm of the night. Their silent presence is a reminder, sleep is not just an individual act, but a communal experience shared between humans, animals, and the world itself. The fires that burned through the long hours are now mere embers, casting gentle warmth but no longer chasing away the dark. The scent of cooled ashes mingles with the early morning air, fresh with the promise of a new day. Somewhere nearby, a river murmurs softly, its surface catching the earliest light like 1,000 tiny stars folding away their glow. In these quiet moments, you reflect on the journey through Sumer's ancient night. The stories of shepherds counting sheep beneath moonlit skies, the temple chants that lulled worshippers into serene trances, the humble farmers who trusted in the wisdom of restless flocks, and the sleepless king who sought peace in carved stone and whispered prayers. What strikes you most is how deeply this civilization understood the sacredness of rest. Thousands of years ago, before the modern world's distractions and demands, the Sumerians recognized sleep not as a mere necessity, but as a vital, protected ritual, a moment of grace where mind and body, spirit and earth, could realign. Their rituals, their lullabies, their remedies, and even their myths reveal a profound respect for the delicate boundary between wakefulness and dreams. In every village, field, and palace chamber, rest was woven into daily life as both a practical need and a spiritual gift. The starry sky above you, still faintly glowing, reminds you of their simple, enduring wisdom, that to rest is to honor oneself and the universe, that sleep is a journey traveled slowly and kindly, and that sometimes, the soft counting of sheep, the gentle touch of a blessing, or the shared stories by firelight can be the most powerful guides into the realm of peace. As the horizon brightens, birds begin their morning songs. The village stirs awake, lanterns are extinguished, and the day's work begins once more. But the memory of the night remains, a whispered legacy carried forward on the breath of time. In Sumer, the night was never simply a pause between days. It was a sacred space where humanity learned to listen, to calm, and to dream. And as you turn away, stepping down into the waking world, you carry a piece of that quiet magic with you, a gentle history whispering still. Thank you for joining me on this journey through ancient Sumer's night, where dreams, rituals, and restless kings remind us that the quest for restful sleep is truly timeless. If you enjoyed this story and want to explore more fascinating tales from history, mythology, and beyond, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a whisper from Thunga's story time. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you in the next story.